And you cannot deduct from this year's taxes the 3 days that the government was shut down.
Oh. people were looking for a loophole
Yeah,
there, weren't
they were, yes. It's tons of it on Facebook, but no, you can't do that.
All right, I'm going to scratch that off on my list here. Okay. But it's good to see you again. Good to have you here this morning. Now, you kind of laid some groundwork last week here in the first week as to what we're going to be discussing here in the next several weeks here. And, January 29th, I suppose you said it was the first day? Is that right, that they're going to be taking returns back?
Yeah. Generally, when I do this over the last number of years, I kind of time what we're talking about with what's kind of happening in the industry. Mm-hmm. And right now, the best advice is be patient.
Okay.
You don't have to hurry up and get that return in to get your refund in 3 days.
Right.
What is happening in the industry is, first of all of the computer software between the IRS and Wisconsin Department of Revenue and software companies, that all has to match. So when we file them, they get the right numbers in the right pockets.
Okay.
And most of the software is up and running and has been tested. But there's always some type of glitches. We will receive an update to our software twice a week up until the end of January.
Is that right?
Yeah, just little glitches. And a lot of times we're doing a return and we notice something is not printing out right, or we'll call the software company.
Yeah.
And say you need to fix this. So there's thousands of accounts across the country feeding information to them. So there's a nice check and balance. But that means those who are doing their returns really early might be doing them before these glitches are caught.
Right.
And just within the software, there could be an error. So for purposes of having a true accurate return, be a little bit patient. Secondly, the IRS has announced that they will not accept electronically filed returns until January 29th. So, and we've done a number of returns in our office. People will come in, we do the return.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's done. We know it's okay. We just hold it.
Yeah.
And on January 29th, we'll file a big batch of returns that we've been sitting backed up.
Yeah.
So the fact that your return is done doesn't mean, I apologize if we fooled you, doesn't mean that return is in at the IRS and your refund is being processed. We can't. No one in the country can do that.
No point in sending it out yet.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you're doing your own self-prepared return on the internet, the same problem is with that software company that you're using. If you're using Intuit tax software, they're just holding that. It is not in the hands of the IRS.
Sure.
So it's not going to speed up your refund by getting it done today as opposed to getting it done January 28th. That's one caution. The other caution is all of the information returns, the W-2s, the 1099s, they are required to be in the mail to you by January 31st. That means there might be something out there that you don't have yet, that you maybe forgot.
Mm-hmm.
We will do probably 10 amended returns a year for people who came in too early. And then they'll call up, I just got this in the mail. What do I do now?
Yeah, bring it down here.
So be patient. Wait for those forms to get there. Another good hint, always compare to last year's return. Most people are very boringly consistent. We don't change a whole lot.
Oh, sure.
So if you compare it to last year's return and you see a major change, there has to be a reason for that change. A lot of times in doing returns, we will find that something is missing because we do that. We have a comparison to last year's return actually built into our computers. So if we see a major change, oh, gee, last year you had such and such, and we'll get, oh, I forgot that.
Yeah.
So it's be patient, wait for all those information returns. I know I pick on waiters and waitresses, but that industry tends to have a big overturn, and it's not uncommon to see 6 to 8 W-2 forms from someone working in that industry.
Yeah.
And they actually forgot that they worked 2 weeks at some place.
Wow.
So because they worked at so many different places, a lot of times it's short term. So make sure that you've got all of the information, all of the places you worked on that return. Surprisingly, it is every year for the last 10 years, and I know it's more, but I don't know exactly how many years. The largest returns with mistakes were made in the name, address, and Social Security number.
Yeah, you were telling me about this. I couldn't believe that. All of the head-spinning stuff that has to get figured out, and then what should be the easiest part of the entire thing.
The basic part
gets turned into an oversight.
Is the one that gets screwed up.
Yeah.
And it's probably because it's so simple. So when that return is done, when you're ready to file it, just check it over, and especially that area, because it's so easy to mistype a zip code.
Yeah.
I know for us to do a lot of returns, I have already done it, fortunately not too often, but I type in Manitowoc instead of Rivers.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And again, it was my problem, not for typing it, but for not looking at it.
Right.
So that area you always want to take a second look at and make sure that you have it right.
We're here with Lakeshore Accounting President Don Wollersheim. It is tax time here. Our Wednesday feature here for the next several weeks on WCUB Breakfast Club. Time is 8:24. Back with more with Don right after this here on WCUB. Wollersheim here this morning, president of Lakeshore Accounting. Now, Don, with these matters of people's financial interests and matters of money, must obviously come security measures.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And the IRS is such a wonderful place to get information.
Yeah.
You get it all. Name, address, birthday, Social Security number.
Sure.
For the last 5 years, the IRS and the Wisconsin Department of Revenue have been putting in a lot of extra security measures to stop ID theft.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a growing problem.
Yeah.
This year, on returns that are done professionally, we need to have the taxpayer's driver's license, date of issue, date of expiration, license number.
Okay.
And I say professionally because I'm not sure how far into the industry they're going to do this. If you're doing your own taxes online, that information is probably going to be asked for. The returns without that are not going to be rejected. They would go through. The problem is returns that are e-filed without that information are going to go through extra security measures.
Okay.
They're not going to go through, normally electronically filed return. I file it. It hits IRS computers. The computers do a very quick check within a day, sometimes two, but very seldom. And your check is on the mail within less than a week.
Under normal circumstances.
Under normal circumstances, yeah. And that was always the big deal about electronic filing, that you could get a very quick refund. The problem when a return has some little niches in it, it's pulled so that someone actually looks at it. Now, when it takes a human being to look at it, it doesn't transfer that fast.
Right.
So we know that there are issues with dependents, returns with dependents, in claiming earned income credit, go through an extra security check. We know that already. We are told that returns that do not have that driver's license information, they will be processed, but you probably won't get your refund until March 15th.
Okay, so that's into springtime already.
Yeah. So if you're doing your own return and you're online and they ask for that information, don't be surprised that I never had to give them that before.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it fascinating. All this computer technology stuff amazes me because I'm old and I don't like it. My grandson had to set up my cell phone for me. But it's amazing what happens and what they do. And I wonder about this. At the start, I said that it's a great place to get information because you have everything. Well, prior to this year, the IRS had everything but your driver's license number in one place. So, but when we're dealing with the IRS, there are additional passwords that are going on. And I think it's just, as I talk about it, in society, it's something that we deal with. And we just don't understand what it costs us, even if we didn't have an ID theft on our own. Because we, in preparing your return, we've probably added more than 5 minutes in gathering information and keeping paperwork to track. We have to pay, we don't have to, but we pay for ID theft insurance.
Okay.
And I'm sure every business out there is running through these same issues. There are tremendous amounts of money that are being paid by the businesses to help protect your ID. And I was thinking about this yesterday, that I wonder how much additional costs just on our daily expenses we run through just for ID protection. So we do really heavily run into it because we have just a wealth of hopefully secure information, a lot of personal information that any hacker would just love to get at, probably more so than most businesses.
Yeah. The technology is a wonderful thing, but it also can open the doors for some very smart people, who want to do harm.
And what's worse, it's people from all over the world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to prosecute someone over in Timbuktu.
Yeah, right.
Or to even get your money back from them. So, again, be careful with what you are doing with your tax return. The IRS will never, ever send you an email. Even when I'm working with clients that are being audited, it's between the auditor and I.
Okay.
Can't use email. Even though it's a specific client in a specific issue. So if you get one of these scams, well, if you get a notice from the IRS that it's in the fashion of email, delete it immediately.
Okay. It's not them.
It's not coming from a good source.
Right.
And we've talked, everyone knows about the stupid phone calls that are trying to pose as the IRS and threaten to send you to jail if you don't send them a money order immediately. The IRS deals with slow mail first.
Right.
And any of these quick issues, ask the person for their badge number. Every agent has a badge number and is required to give it to you. Ask for the badge number and a return phone number and tell them that your representative will call them back. Because we can do that. And if you are dealing really with the IRS, they will give you that information.
Sure.
People that are not the IRS are not going to give that information to you.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to have it, most likely.
Yeah, so in preparing your return for this year, don't be surprised if they ask for your driver's license. And it's a driver's license for both the taxpayer and the spouse. And it's kind of a pain, but it's good that we have more and more of these little roadblocks to ID theft. Because it is a very serious issue.
Yeah. It's kind of a necessity now in the time that we live in.
Yes.
With the technology. Well, let's see, 8:35 here this morning on the Breakfast Club. We're talking with Lakeshore Accounting President Don Wollersheim with Tax Time. Getting up against it a little bit here, but before we let you go, was there anything else you wanted to bring up here today for this week's edition?
No, well, just a summary of what we talked about. Be patient, because you're not going to get your refund any quicker.
Right.
And while you're being patient, be careful. Review that return, compare it to last year's return. Check your personal information. Check the really easy stuff. That's where you kind of get lax and do some typos.
Or forget to fill something out entirely.
Or forget that type of information, the computer systems, the programs are not going to allow you to e-file that return if something like that is missing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, there's real good systems on the e-filing. And it's a self-prepared sites that you go on. I'm sure they have the same checks and controls because they're required to have those by the IRS.
You're missing information. Yeah, they'll let you know.
The IRS won't accept a return. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So be careful when you're doing that return. Remember, you're dealing with something that is highly potential to ID theft.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful where you're sending that information and what you're doing with it. Actually, if you're doing your own return, a lot of these sites that advertise free, they talk about federal. You are also required to do a state return.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I've seen a number of clients, well, I did my federal, I didn't ask about my state. Well, you get in just a serious trouble with the state if you don't file a return. Usually the ones that advertise for free, they're talking about federal. They're not talking about state.
Oh, okay.
So when you kick over and want to do a Wisconsin return, there's usually a charge. And print the return out and keep it. I did my return, but I didn't have a printer hooked up. If there's an error, you have to know what you filed.
There you go.
And if you don't have it printed, it is possible to get a copy from the IRS, but it costs you money.
Oh, okay.
And it takes a long time to get it.
I was going to say it probably costs you time, too.
Yeah. It costs you time, yeah. Yeah, so make sure you print to keep a hard copy and keep those for 4 years. The state of the IRS, there's a 3-year statute of limitations. 3 years after the due date, unless there's fraud indicated, they can't come back and look at change that return. The state can go 4 years.
Okay.
So you want to keep those copies for 4 years. I've run into a number of times where someone did their own return for a couple of years and then came in to see us, and we found something they were doing wrong. That statute of limitation applies to the taxpayer also. You can go back 3 years. So we were able to go back those 3 years and amend those returns to file them correctly to recoup some of that money.
All right.
There was a funny one many years ago. I did a return in the morning of April 15th. And I found a major error, and it was a couple grand a year. And I called the client, and I said, "What are you doing tonight?" "Nothing, why?" I said, "How would you like to take a ride to Green Bay?" That was back in the time when the post office used to be open till 12.
Okay.
You probably don't even remember those days.
No, I wouldn't have had any reason to be there. No.
There would be a jam up it was like a game people would play to be the last one in the country to file their tax return. So the post offices would have a lineup, and they would need traffic control.
Oh, it must have been miserable.
But on April 15th, they found his error. We were able to go back and do amended returns, but that return that was 3 years old was going to expire on December of that day, and that had to be posted.
Wow.
So, and there was another issue where he was scrambling to find a copy of that return so that we could
Yeah.
do an amended return.
Wow.